Oh, come on. Don't do this.
You're showing live on mine.
No, Instagram. Oh, there it goes. Okay.
What up? What up? So we got some. What up, everybody? Joining you from a hotel room somewhere on the East Coast.
What up, fellas?
What up, fellers? You fart smellers?
Hey, guess what?
What's up?
We
Did
just
you
came
know
off the
that?
Daytona 500.
Yeah, Daytona 500 was great, and I cannot wait. It's officially time for us to head out to. Who's this?
Well, it's not officially time.
Well, close, very, very close to time for us to head out. We're going to Atlanta. I cannot wait. Super excited.
God bless America, and gentlemen, start your engine!
Still down there. Still down there.
Still outside corner, you're number one.
Was out. Hell was out. That's just about outricked him. And then she busted her ass.
What were you saying?
So rude of you.
Something I don't know happened.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
There's some kind of bug going on.
Forget the volume blares at 1,000% on Instagram as soon as you go live on it.
Hey, cool reporter joined the Instagram feed. Amazing.
You know, I'm just gonna go ahead and drop a like on it, like all y'all should, because that helps.
Yeah.
So go ahead and blow up the little like button, whether you're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I don't know where all we're streaming to, but
What up, Bill?
thank y'all. What's up, Bill? How's it going, buddy? Hope we see you in Atlanta, possibly. Hope you have a good time there as well. What's up, Will? Thank you for joining. You weren't first, so you're last. Hey, did you know that we have a Daytona Xfinity winner, the rap star, I guess you could say, in our chat right now?
That's a good one.
He's the rap star is in our chat right now.
I like that
So
one.
excited.
Congratulations, Dalton, on the epic win. That's fucking awesome.
Hey, if you happen to sneak out one of those fenders under your arm at work, I'll take the other one. All right?
Yeah. Huh. I gotta send something.
What's up, fellas? What's up, Andrew? How's it going? I got you over on the Instagram side.
What up, Andrew?
Bouncing back and forth. Hope to see you at Atlanta too. Have you? Did you get your wristbands? I know you were talking to me about it. Let me know if you got your wristbands. Hopefully. But ooh, yes. Oh yeah. What's up, buddy? Looking forward to seeing y'all in Atlanta. Cannot wait. Raise hell, praise Dale. You know it. We're gonna do our best. So we got a lot to talk about. It was a great Daytona all at the same time with being kind of a controversial Daytona. So we're going to talk about that for sure. It's Atlanta race week. We're going to Atlanta, so we're going to talk about that. And then probably get into some other stuff. I mean, you never know what you're going to get into on the podcast, but we're going to figure it out as we get through it. If y'all got any questions, put it in the chat. Let us know. Make sure y'all blow up the likes. Really appreciate y'all.
I'm listening. My internet's whacking out here. I'm trying to.
It's because you live out in BFE.
Yep. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Have my sip. But yeah, we're live here. We are leaving Friday afternoon, I believe.
Friday morning, late morning.
Friday late morning. Okay. So we're going to leave. We're taking the bus down infield. If y'all don't know, we go live a ton on our TikTok when we do this. We're going to have some of the boys out there with us. It's going to be a great weekend. Also, on top of that, we're going to be on another podcast Saturday morning. Rubbin' is Racing, I believe is the name of the group, right?
Grubbin' and Rubbin', or Rubbin' and Grubbin'. Yeah.
So we're going to be on their podcast live from the track Saturday morning. Not quite sure if we're going to be on top of our bus or over on their setup. Don't know, but look forward to that at Atlanta. It's going to be interesting because the internet connectivity sometimes not the best at some of these tracks, but Atlanta, we've definitely had pretty good odds.
We've
So
had good luck at Atlanta. I thought Atlanta would be the worst when it comes to cell coverage, but
it's been pretty good. Charlotte's been good. Atlanta's been good. The one that's been the worst, Talladega, when we go to it, there ain't going to be any connection. It's just going to be a week you ain't going to see us.
yeah, plan for your phone to be off.
What's up, Joe?
What up, buddy?
But
you're out of here already, so I think
yeah.
we should talk about Daytona.
All right, let's get into Daytona. So, are we going to start with what? Oh, even got Pity in here.
Oh boy, it's just going to go downhill from here.
Well, sorry, chat. Y'all just got probably deleted, just in case you didn't know. But all right, so let's talk about. You want to do the clashes first, or you want to do qualifying first?
Oh, the duels?
Yeah.
Yeah. We can talk about
the duels, not clashes. Jeez. So obviously, we saw Toyota struggling when it came to qualifying. So it was interesting that when we got over to the duels, that they kind of held strong and held their own out there. They did really well. I don't know if I like the redesign yet. When it came to qualifying Ford, which we kind of knew they knew their super speedways. Chevy looked decent, but Toyota's looked awful. And then all of a sudden you get into the clash and it was a whole different story, it seems like.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because I felt obviously, like you said, Toyotas were complete garbage single speed runs or single car runs. But then we had the Fords, they showed up. You know, we had Logano on the pole, McDowell qualified outside pole.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about that is that front row now is a tier 1 team with Ford. So they're getting pretty much all the information they can get, you know, whether it's coming from Penske or RFK. So I'm interested to see how that's going to work out this year. But yeah, the Fords showed up and they knocked a long string of Hendrick qualifying on the front row for the 500. I think it was 7 or 8 years in a row or something like that.
It was pretty substantial.
I think Bowman had like 7 consecutive years starting on the front row. And he qualified like 14th or something like that.
He did terrible when it came to qualifying, which I was really surprised.
He messed up. He messed up getting up to speed. I remember watching qualifying and they kind of played his back. And I think he didn't miss a shift, but he overexerted or you know, kind of revved out that shift too long.
NASCAR terms.
Yeah. But what I wanted to touch on though was that I think what we kind of saw was, you know, Hendrick in the last decade, it seems that they always qualified on the front row, but they were a complete ass in the race. And part of that was with luck, but they had handling issues. And, you know, they went 10 years without winning this race. Yeah. I think they came with a different agenda this year. I think they settled for not getting the front row, but they wanted to settle on, you know, handling and having long run speed. And it showed up this year.
Yeah, and I think it's the way these strategies are changing. And we'll talk about this more when we get into the Daytona 500 piece. But
hold up. That's not cool, dude. That's not cool, dude. I'm gonna go and shave right now if that's going to be the case.
You do actually look a lot like Corey.
Fuck that, dude.
You actually do. Do you like Chili's? Are you a Chili's fan?
No.
You going for those margaritas, ain't you?
The hell no.
Mm-hmm.
Hell no.
Thank you, Cooper, for finally showing that Andy is a closet LaJoie fan. We'll make sure that we get an autograph just for Andy at least one of these weekends.
No, I'm out. See you later.
Hey, Andy LaJoie. The chat has spoken. You love chili. I know, Kelly. We all know you love Chili's. Yeah, and I caught your comment this time, unlike last time. I apologize. I'm sorry.
Quit it, motherfucker. All right, you want to handle comments? Fuck off. You got it.
All right. So
I hate all you guys.
All right, let's get this back on the rails. This is a NASCAR podcast, and right now we're talking about Chili's and Corey LaJoie. How many pennies you got? Just wondering. So it's true. So yeah, I think it's the strategy. I think they understand that it really does not matter where you start at Daytona, and so they would rather save the cars than they would risk putting it on the line and wrecking out, kind of like we saw in the second duel where people were being a little bit more hairy. Because that first, the first duel, there was no cautions. I mean, they were basically, it was done real quick. That second one, though, we obviously saw the big wreck that claimed.
Yeah,
I don't know why Blaney always gets the raw end of the deal, but claimed Blaney and a couple other cars.
I think the first duel, everybody was trying to figure out, what they had. There was a lot of, anticipation what the new noses would be with the Fords and the Toyotas and how they would push. So the lack of practice going into this, going straight from qualifying into the dual races, these guys, they don't know what their cars would push like. They don't know how the Toyotas would line up or how the Fords would line up. So I think there was a lot of taking it easy in that first duel. There was some aggressiveness from some of the guys there, but it wasn't like a all out slugfest. And I think that in between the duels, everybody had teammates in both races. They probably talked about how these cars ran, what to expect, and then the intensity level, it was higher in that second race.
Yeah.
I think that's inherent of how it's going to be. And these guys, they put on a show, but Blaney, he took a hell of a hit.
Yeah, and it seems like he did have it right whenever it was at the end, and he apologized later for how he said it and everything. But he has been on the raw end of a bad push or a bad block a bunch of times. And I mean, obviously, we've seen him, it seems like, be that magnet to hit the wall at that angle. That's like, man, that's gotta hurt. The whole thing with him and the safer barriers. He's tested out safer barriers. He's tested out the end of a pit road that didn't have safer barriers. The man just keeps getting caught up in it. So wrong place, wrong time.
What's crazy too is that camera angle that Fox had inside the cockpit, like facing back towards the driver. That I feel like that should be mandatory for every single driver, not from necessarily like a entertainment standpoint or whatever, but as far as like a research and development. Like you can learn so much by slowing those camera feeds down, and just the slow motion that Fox had, that was crazy to see how much his head snapped forward, even with the Hans device, even with the harnesses, the reaction time, closing his eyes, getting his hands off the wheels. We're talking a split second from being hooked and then hitting the wall. And Ryan had, the speed to be able to get his hands off the wheel. So,
yeah. Well, he did during the duels. He didn't during the race because it snapped him at the race.
That's crazy too. What Joe's is saying, that killed Dell.
Yeah.
And so 25 years of technology and really just mandating the Hans device. The Hans device was out when Dell was alive. He was against
didn't
it.
like it.
And a lot of guys that they started racing with it, they weren't on board with it either.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, I watched qualifying and I was like, man, Toyota made a mistake here with their redesign. But then I watched, obviously, the duels, and I didn't know because watching the duels does not give you a good answer as to what you're going to see when it comes to the race. So I wanted to see what it was going to look like at the actual 500. Obviously, we had to wait a couple days due to rain and other issues. No, he did not.
No.
It's just like a cavity.
Where's RJ at?
So it's all the pieces that kind of add together when it comes to duels. I don't think it really ends up being a good product of going, hey, this is what happened at the duel, so this is what's going to happen at the actual race. And that's why when we picked fantasy this week, I picked Chevy going into it, and I thought from the beginning, I just had a feeling that Chevy was still going to be consistent. And even with the redesigns from Ford and Toyota, they definitely were consistent. They definitely got to the front. They definitely led some laps. They performed well. They always have strategy as well. And then they have all the numbers. They have the most cars on the track at any given time.
Yeah, I feel like Chevrolet, they do have the most amount of cars out there. But I feel like there is a difference between your Tier 1 Chevy teams, Hendrick, RCR, and Trackhouse. Those three guys, they seem to work together, but a lot of the other Chevy teams, they weren't really, I didn't see too much of them, being worked with. A lot of the Hendrick guys, they worked with Kyle Busch. Ross talked about it. I heard something, I think it was this morning, but I heard something that Ross was talking about in the post race. He's like, I was just working with those Hendrick guys as much as possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, the numbers lined up for him. But as far as fantasy, I felt like going into this, even after the Toyota's really bad qualifying efforts, as soon as I saw what they had in the duels, I knew they were going to show up in the duels, but I knew they were going to show up in the 500, and they did. Denny was aggressive. The Fords, they showed like they had some raw speed. They were going to be able to hold it up front, and they pretty much commanded most of that race.
Yeah,
I think Logano led the most laps, 41 laps or something, which at a super speedway, that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
The Chevys, I only had one Chevy in my fantasy, and he was in the garage. And shockingly, I picked Larson for the garage. Something told me after seeing him in the duels that he's got a fast car. Maybe something's going to turn around. Maybe he's going to have some luck. He got caught up in that last wreck, unfortunately, but
he's got that super speedway curse. He's one of those that has that issue.
Season don't start till Las Vegas.
Because it's the rough first couple races for old Larson. And I mean, you look at some of the other guys that are out there that struggle at super speedways, but to going back to it, Toyota with the redesign, I don't know yet. I don't think until Vegas we get a true picture of it anyway, because you said race hard.
I think Ford and Toyota, both of them.
Agreed. I agree for both of those. I think
you could argue all three, because is Chevy going to take a step back?
I don't think so.
Or is it that they can't update their body anymore? So are they going to take a step back, or is the Ford and Toyota going to be leaps and bounds ahead?
Yeah,
and just
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd like to see what's going to happen with that. I would love to see that Cadillac body that they were teasing. Obviously, we know that's probably not going to happen. But I really don't know what other car they would choose unless they're going to come out with something to do any redesign whatsoever. So I know they're hoping that they don't have a drawback on it, but I'm still not bought into the Toyota redesign being great. So far, I think the Ford one has done decent. We saw that in the qualifying single car speed. Chevy so far is just still consistent, so I got to see what they're going to do there. It's going to be interesting to see because nobody was really racing hard. It looked, we talked about this in our group. It looked fantastic as far as the Daytona 500 goes. However, that's next gen fantastic. That's not fantastic racing, because this whole let's go 50 to 60% throttle and just make some fuel pit stops, and that's how we win this race, is not real racing. We heard it from multiple drivers. They're just bored. You sit there and you're like, okay, who was it? Reagan, I think, got on the thing and was like, hey, I'm at 50%. That's all I can do so I don't run out of gas. Nobody was passing him. AJ, who came off and was by himself, was running faster laps than the entire group. That's insanity that they're doing fuel savings. The
first stage got screwed up with that caution on lap 6, because you had a handful of guys that stayed out, did not come in, and a majority of the field that did come in, and they topped off on fuel. And because of that, the guys that stayed out, they inherited the lead, and they were able to command it. They were able to go out there and run 50% throttle, save as much fuel as possible. The guys behind them, they could save even more fuel, because they were right there on that number of being able to make it to the end. Or if they couldn't make it to the end, they could at least, take, 2 seconds of fuel to make it to the end. And that's the name of the game. I feel like, is it the stages that's causing this new strategy? Yes, there's aero and everything else. Denny talked about it with these cars have much more increased drag. So because of that, they're going to be using more fuel. But that aside, is it the stages? Because I feel like these guys they're still racing hard for stage points. They're going for the stage wins. You have all that out there. Is it the known fact that we have a caution coming at lap 60? So because the caution is coming at lap 60, we can, set up a strategy to where if we save X amount of fuel, we can pit, 2 seconds or 4 seconds or whatever it is. Like, is that what's causing that? Because if so, let's get rid of stages.
So while I give my speech on this, I want y'all to put in the comments for us real quick. What did you think about the race? Do you think the fuel saving strategy is okay? Do you think that it's BS? Put it in the chat. Let us know what y'all think as I talk about it real quick, because I'm really interested to see what kind of everyone thinks about this whole strategy when it comes to fuel saving versus just hit the skinny pedal.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
these guys, they were running like 4 seconds slower than what the pace was.
It was a
You could
3
hear it.
second off.
You could hear it on TV. I don't know what it sounded like at the track, but you could hear the difference in speed on TV.
Yeah, I mean, and that's my thing is like I feel like if you get all of them out there actually racing, so pushing the throttle, because we saw that, at one point they had to go, after I think it was first stage, because they had the ones that stayed out. They were like, all right, we got to start going faster because we got to get them to start using their fuel so that they still have to stop and can't wait all the way till that first stage brake caution. I don't think the stage brakes is going to fix it. I don't think taking them away. I don't think it's the stage brakes causing the issue. It is the way the strategy is, because, excuse me, all the drivers fall in line for the strategy. If all of them were out there pushing their cars 60, 70, 80, 90% throttles, then everyone would have to use fuel. You would just have to make sure that you don't have anyone out there that's like, if you have more cars pushing it than you do saving, then you're not going to have this issue. Now, I don't know how that goes in terms of passing because of the aero dependency out there. So maybe that's why it's not happening. But I don't feel like the stage brakes or the stage cautions is what's causing this. I don't think if you move them, change them, or remove them completely, it'll change anything unless we get a control of the actual drivers and teams.
Yeah, I don't. I'm with Dalton on this. Even though they were just riding around, seeing them, double wide, that was way better than them just rim riding the top, single file. That's how I would rather have it. The race shouldn't be slowly on fuel mileage. Yeah, I don't think they should, and I don't know how you fix that. I don't think you could get away from stage cautions and have them like what we had at road courses last year, where they, stages were, after the stage was over, they continued to go green, because you still have guys, strategizing to, we have to save this much fuel, that way we can still get stage points.
Yeah,
that situation. So,
and they're still going to plan for the end of the race. They're gonna have to.
They would work it back. They would work it backwards. They would have to bet on cautions exactly. So, just like a road course.
I fear there should be one stage caution at lap 100. I don't think changing, adding, moving any of the stages is going to change anything, because as long as the teams end up getting together and going, hey, if you're good with 60%, I'm good with 60%. Well, okay, cool.
And that was the biggest problem, was we had two Fords out front controlling it. So the guys that had stayed out, they were the ones that were controlling it. If they wanted to run 50%, they could run 50%, and it just snowballed.
And that's why we saw that third line develop much quicker than I've ever seen it develop at Daytona. I mean, I think it was Ross almost right away by the end of like the third lap was already 3 wide coming out. So I think that's part of it too, because he was able to catch up and push forward. But I don't know. It's one of those things, like I'd like to see what happens if everyone pushes it.
I don't know how you police that or how you address that. I don't know. I don't know if there's a fix to it.
Yeah, unless all the teams start you're going to have to take.
I think as a fan, we just have to expect at the early part of the race, because before we had this going on, I think we all expected, 5 years ago with the old car, that you probably get 10 to 15 laps at the start of the race to where these guys are racing hard, jockeying for position, and then they all get on the high line and they ride around.
Yeah.
Whether it was with stages or if it was with the old car, that's what we saw. And we would see that, inevitably 15, 20 laps into the start of the race. I think now with this new car, we have to, just kind of expect, when it comes to super speedways, that there's going to be a lull at the start of the race, because it's, they're going to do what they can to save fuel and stretch these races.
Yeah. And, I agree with you. And that's why let's move into actually talking about the race itself now. Because obviously, it goes back to put power back in the cars when it comes to short track racing. NASCAR is not going to change anything. I don't think they can change anything. And it would take the teams doing something different, which they're not going to do. So let's talk about the race itself. We had Stage 1, pretty uneventful, except for, I think it was one caution in stage 1.
Yeah.
So one caution in stage 1 kind of took out all the names that we kind of expected.
Jimmy was in it.
Jimmy was
Austin
in it.
Dillon was in it. Harrison Burton. Shit luck for Austin Dillon too. I mean, like he was pretty well going to avoid that, and at the last second, Burton came back across the track.
Couldn't happen to a better guy.
Yeah. Dillon, Casgrala, Burton, and Hocevar were all in that.
So I want to ask this question. Austin Dillon, obviously this is the first race of the season. This is way too early. Way too early. I want to go ahead and say it's way too early. However, if Austin Dillon does not show up this season, does Austin Hill take his ride next year?
I think that's entirely up to Austin.
Austin Dillon or Hill?
Austin Dillon. Yeah, sorry, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, they're both the same. Well, you're right, Andy.
Yeah, you're damn right. Andy LaJoy showed up on this one.
Andy LaJoy.
No, I think that's up to Austin Dillon. I think he can be in that car for as long as he wants to. Johnny Morris is happy to keep.
And you take me lower.
Oh, what shit luck for Jimmy too.
That's up to his grandpa. Exactly.
I think it's up to Austin Dillon. I don't know if he wants to continue. If he knows that he can't continue to perform, then I feel like he'd step away and kind of take on, more of an office management type role at RCR. Get ready to inherit the company from Pawpaw, and put Austin Hill in the car. Yeah, but I feel like as long as Austin feels like he's still got a competitive edge, or the fire to compete.
How long can you sit? Because Austin Hill said he's not going anywhere. He showed he's not going anywhere because he definitely would have been in a cup car if he would have wanted to. How long can you sit on Austin Hill? The dude is proven to know super speedways. He's known how to race, and he's got a good fan base already. So I feel like he's got good sponsors already kind of lined up for this. I don't know. I don't think it's Austin Dillon's decision. I agree with Bill when he said it's his grandpa's decision. I think at some point they got to make a business move, because I don't know. I didn't see, but Austin Dillon's TV show thing, it's no more, right? It's done, because I didn't see anything about it this year.
I know.
I know you were a big fan of it, LaJoy.
Yeah. Okay.
Eating the popcorn.
Okay.
But I'd like to see what goes on there. But if
I think it's up to Austin. I do. I think he wants to try to run a couple more years, and if nothing pans out, he'll step away. Because Austin Hill has at least he has a multi-year agreement. I think it was 2 years. He signed at the end of last year. It's a multi-year deal.
Yeah. That's kind of what they do. They only say multi-year. You don't really know. Most of the time it is a 2-year deal, though. I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see, because I think next year, if anything else, they need to bring another charter in, which I think they already have.
They could lease a charter from somebody who was willing to lease one out, but I don't think there is anybody.
I don't know. I can't remember who all has the charters now. But it'd be interesting to see. But overall, the racing for next gen was really good. I enjoyed watching the race for the most part. They did really good as far as changing up the order. I know Dalton had talked about it before, where Kyle Busch was able to make it up to the front basically whenever he wanted to. Towards the end of the race, we watched Denny Hamlin go from all the way to the back to the front. I mean,
Fox did not touch on this at all. It was interesting. Every time they would have a restart, I think this might have been the first race at Daytona. I don't remember if it was last year they did this, but it was the choose rule, because they were only doing choose rules at like short tracks and stuff. But I think this was one of the
tracks.
Yeah, I think this was maybe one of the first super speedways that they had to choose, and a lot of guys were choosing the outside line.
Yeah.
So they would give up the inside, and Kyle was getting track position just off of that. Yeah. So I'm not taking anything away from KFB, but TV did not talk about that at all. That second time that the lug nut wasn't on there, and he had to come back in, there was 5 or 6 cars that stopped behind him and pitted.
Yep.
Kyle restarted that race in 12th because of the choose.
Yeah. And I got to say this too. Give Kyle some credit. The dude kept the wheel on around the entire track. This is not a small track.
TV didn't talk about that either. Being that it was the left, he was lucky it was the left side. Excuse me, sir. You're in a podcast. Can't you
where'd it go? I don't know what happened. There we go. All right. Stop. Shh. Every time it bumps it all the way off the screen, so I can't see.
Do not disturb.
Pausing for technical difficulties so that my wife knows exactly what's going on and why I keep ignoring her.
Why won't you answer the phone?
What are you doing?
That means she's not watching the podcast.
I know. It's terrible.
Yeah. I think that would have been too loud. Yeah, for sure. And TV didn't talk about this either. Kyle was really lucky that was the left side lug nut that came off of it, not the right side, because had the right side come off, just the forces, turning left, naturally the right wheel would want to come off. So turning left was able to keep that left wheel on that car.
Yeah.
He's pretty lucky.
And I didn't get to see it. I heard it because I was losing some weight during this time. I had heard that he was talking about stopping in the 3 pit box. Did he make it all the way to his, or did he stop in the 3 pit box to get the?
I missed that part.
Dalton, I know you watched it. Let us know. Put it in the comments. I got to know because I heard it, but I don't know what happened. To that penalty if that wheel came off. Yeah.
Big race for Kyle.
Yeah.
I think he finished 12th.
Sorry, pouring. Getting a little drinky. All right. So get back set up on Instagram. Sorry, everything kind of fell apart now.
All right. He made it to his own stall. That's what Pit Dad said.
Okay, perfect. He really did have to stop. $3. They told him to. Gotcha.
I trust Dalton.
Dalton, I believe the KFB fan. And if anyone, watching from any of these places, he never has flicked anyone off. I promise. Never used a middle finger in his life.
I feel like he should make the trip to Atlanta.
I feel like he should too. Sunday, he needs to be there, regardless of what's going on. It's one of those things that you just do it. All right, Dalton? You just do it.
Peer pressure. Succumb to it.
Oh, trust me, I know you had his radio on. Me and you both were on his radio because we heard Richard Childress comes on the freaking thing.
That ain't nothing new.
And tells them to get your heads out your asses and stop making mistakes.
That is
I laughed so hard when that happened.
I think if you listen to any of the RC channels, like RCR channels, you get some entertainment.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. I listened to his. I was in Noah's, which I got to say, congratulations, NG. That was a great race. Top 10. Last year, The only time he was seeing top 10 was if he looked at Chase Elliott. That was the only way he was seeing anything above 10. So the good news is he actually did a good race.
Not now, like 8 of those races.
He didn't beat LMC because they did finish, I believe, 6th, 7th, and 8th. So didn't beat LMC. However, he didn't look like a douche like John Hunter did. John Hunter, in both the Xfinity and the Cup race, showed why he got kicked out of Cup the first time.
Reading the comments.
So bad, but I got
That's a decent excuse. I'm not saying it's a great excuse. Just a decent excuse.
So you're giving up time with the boys to move into a house that you have forever. Boys, temporary time. House, long term. Okay.
You just got to make up for it at Dega. That's
true. It's true. But, all right. So what else you want to touch on when it comes to the Daytona 500 before we move into next week's picks and a little bit of Atlanta talk?
I want to talk about that fucking finish.
I love the finish.
Just wanted to glaze over that.
I know everyone else did not enjoy it as much as I did. So I had $100 on the line for William Byron to win the race, everyone. And I also had him picked in my fantasy. I think I was the only one to pick him in the fantasy, which we all compete with a group of us. And luckily for me, it worked out completely in my favor. So I don't see anything wrong with that finish. I don't know what you're talking about. I think it was a great finish, and moving on to the next race. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We'll get to picks there in a second then. I have a problem with how that finished. Did you watch the Rolex 24 by chance?
I did not watch the Rolex 24.
So there was a fantastic race coming to the end for the prototype, like the top class cars, and it was like a second and a half, which in that type of race, that's pretty close. One mistake, you can take the lead.
Yeah.
So they come to the white flag. TV even announces it. They're coming to the white flag as the 24 hours starts to end.
Yeah.
Literally like a second before they cross the start-finish line, the race control deemed that it had hit 24 hours, and it went from going from 2 laps to 1 lap to go, from 2 laps to, there's a checker flag.
So they pulled a NASCAR.
NASCAR pulled an IMSA is what it was.
True. NASCAR pulled an IMSA.
The way that finish ended.
I think the time was right. I'm just going to say that.
I think the result was correct. They got it right. William won the race.
Definitely correct.
My
wallet says so.
Yeah, I would have. I don't care if you won the $100 or not. I would have taken a William Byron win any day of the week over Alex Bowman.
100%. 100%.
So, I mean, I would have. Let me look down the list here. I would have taken like a fucking Husavart win.
Oh, who was third?
Christopher Bell. I definitely would have taken that.
Yeah, I'd have been okay with Christopher Bell winning as well.
Yeah. Corey LaJoy is fourth.
I would not be okay with that one.
Yeah. Anyways.
But he's been a pretty good super speedway racer. We got to talk about that too.
Yeah. Okay. If we have to. That finish, the problem I have with that was that we had this, anticipation building up to the end of the race. We had the big wreck. It ended up restarting with 4 laps to go. I fucking hate it.
Right.
5. I hate it when, they drag these, we have these cautions, under 10 laps to go.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they throw the red, they'll still run like 3 laps of pace laps. And it just counts the laps down. Had 47, 5, and 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about that one.
Well, the 5 and the 1 finished it.
Did they end up finishing it?
Yeah.
Minimal damage. I couldn't remember who.
So Larson had no damage from that wreck.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he pitted because he had a flat tire from locking it up.
Gotcha.
But, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it definitely did not end the way everyone wants to. I think it's been 17 years.
We had this fantastic racing for the last 100 laps.
Yeah.
Like, I know that the drivers say that there wasn't much passing, but I think they're smoking some crack because there was some passing going on. There was some lines forming. There was runs going. Like, it was a good race. The last 100 laps, I was completely tuned. I didn't even really want to talk in the group chat because I was wanting to watch all the action that was going on. So
it was good.
We had some really good racing. We were setting up, this awesome finish. Boom, wreck happens. Takes out, a lot of guys.
Yeah.
Big hitters. I mean, I felt,
Brad
Keselowski in it. We had Joey Logano. I felt like we were setting up to see a Ford finish. Brad get that. I was hoping Brad. I had the $100 on Brad.
I was thinking Brad finally had one.
Yeah. So we had this amazing lead up and everything going on. Boom, wreck happens. They get it cleaned up. We waste 3 laps under caution. We restart the race with 5 or 4 laps to go. And it seems like we're going to have some runs form and everything. Boom, we hit this white flag. As soon as we hit the start-finish line, wreck happens. Rather than wait a quarter of a lap, half a lap to see how this pans out, see if the cars can get off the track. Nope, caution, race is over.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. If you had watched the Rolex 24,
yeah,
it was the exact same thing.
And timing was definitely funky. It didn't look great, but I don't know because sometimes NASCAR is trigger happy when it comes to cautions. Sometimes
a lot of times they are.
Yeah, and then sometimes they're just not. Like the ending of the Xfinity race, that wasn't. So I don't.
What was it last year that they were like sleeping on the trigger and there was like a wrecked car sitting in turn 4 and the leaders were coming into turn 4?
Well, remember they did that at Bristol and he was literally facing towards them coming on the back stretch, literally facing backwards towards everyone running at them.
I don't know who it is that controls all that, but
think it's
they're right on top of the trigger or trigger sitting in the next room.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, but at the end of the day, it is a shame that it ruined a good next gen race. I'm not going to say it was a great super speedway race because I don't think it was due to the fuel savings issues, but I do think for this car, as far as what we've seen recent history, this was a great Daytona 500. It was a great super speedway race, and I'm very excited to see what Atlanta is going to bring, especially since we're going to be trackside between turns 1 and 2. Pumped.
I will say, I think you're right as far as next gen. This was the best next gen super speedway race of all time, hands down.
Yeah.
I think it was one of the best Daytona 500s in the last 10 years. There were other races, obviously, that were great Daytona races. Gen 4 cars, they were great, but you can go back and say that the 2004 Daytona 400 or 500 was not that great because we had 3 guys broken away from the pack, and it was 2 cars. That was it. 2 cars on the lead lap, Dale and Tony. Kurt Busch was a lap down. It came down to those 2 guys.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that. That's not super speedway racing. But 2 years later, we had pack racing. So it ebbs and flows. There's changes in packages and everything. I will say for a fact that this was the best super speedway race next gen era.
Next gen era, 100%. I agree with you there.
Yeah.
So let's go move on to Atlanta. Can't wait. We're going to be there. Definitely Saturday. We're going live, like we talked about, with Rubbin and Grubbin. Grubbin and Rubbin.
Rubbin and Grubbin.
Grubbin and Rubbin. It's going to be a fun time. We're going to have a great time. We're going to have rubbing out the grubbin. I think that's something different. But we're going to have a great time with the boys. I believe we're going to have a few people out there on top of the bus with us. If you see us, make sure that you take a picture and show us. We'll be on TV. We've always been on TV. It's usually really quick, but luckily I'm fat enough that you can see me as they're spanning across.
There is a high probability you will not have a shirt on.
Very, very high probability. I mean, like if we can take betting odds, it's pretty much like 2-1 that I'm not going to have a shirt on, and you're going to see all of this. You're welcome. We'll probably be going live on TikTok as well, so make sure you're joining all of our socials. It's going to be a great time. But let's get into Atlanta picks. Who you got bringing home the hardware?
Back to back. I'm going with not Willie.
Okay.
I'm going with Brad.
You said back to back. I'm like,
no, back to back on picks. I'm going with Brad.
Going Brad again?
Yep.
I was really hoping you were going to pick Brad here. Okay, so since that was my choice, I'm gonna go Ross. I think Ross is gonna do. He did really well during Daytona. At one point he looked very good. Like
Ross was he was pulling a Joey Logano.
Yeah,
I mean, I thought it was funny too. Joey gets out, he's pissed, talking in interviews, and he's talking about how hellacious the blocks were that Ross was throwing.
Yeah.
I just rolled my eyes.
Look back to every block Joey's ever thrown.
Yeah. Joey Logano is the most aggressive blocker on super speedways. So for him to say, oh, Ross is throwing hellacious blocks, boy, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, he that hair plug commercial, they moved the hair somewhere else. But yeah, I don't get that at all. But yeah, I think Ross takes this one. It'll be interesting to see.
Do we see handling come into play this year?
Yes. I think Atlanta has worn out enough that you will.
I think it's worn some. We saw it in the July race last year.
Yes.
I think it's worn some more. We're going to see it. It's going to be warm this year, which I'm really happy. Hopefully,
I was worried.
Hopefully the weather gods for every race we go to this year
don't jinx it. Don't even say it. Don't.
No, we've earned it. We've earned it after last year. Froze our asses off at Atlanta. Literally froze our asses off at Bristol. Darlington
got rained out in Charlotte.
Rained out at Charlotte. Yeah, we're gonna get owed back to us.
We deserve a good year of going to the track.
I think it's gonna be like almost 70 degrees. So with that, warm track temperatures, I think we're gonna see something close. Maybe not exactly like what we saw in the July race because there was a lot of extra intensity because of the weather. with the rain coming. I think we're going to see some, some slick racing. I think we're going to see some wrecks. Hell, we might even actually see some 3-wide racing.
I think we do. I think we see all 3. And I'm super excited for it. I cannot wait. Every time we go to a racetrack, it's always some of the best time of the year. So I cannot wait.
Kyle Busch is racing the truck race.
Kyle Busch is racing the truck race. We get to be there for that.
Yep.
He'll be in the Spire car, which is going to be interesting to see.
His old truck, essentially.
Yeah, and I can't wait to watch it. I can't wait to be there. Got the doubleheader on Saturday. It's going to be a great time on Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday's going to be great.
And then we got the Peach Pit. Hopefully we can get some light up glasses again because that was a lot of fun. And then we'll be back Tuesday for our next podcast since we'll be at the race. So Tuesday, 7:30 will be our next podcast. So I want to say thank you to everyone that's joined us, whether it's over here on the Instagram side or on Facebook/YouTube. Make sure that if you need a new cooler, go to kangacoolers.com. Use our code FASCAR10. It will save you 10%, and it helps us out. Every bit that it helps us out puts money towards getting that bus to more races or to farther away races. So if you need a new cooler, if you haven't seen Kanga Coolers, really cool. You can either put your literally 12-pack inside it, zip it up, or they got the backpacks. They got all the good stuff. But use FASCAR10. It helps us out. Also, you get 10% off. So thank y'all, and thank them for supporting the channel. But
I want to say something real quick. Bill H on Instagram. First of all, thank you for following us. But he said one big commercial advertisement with little race showing. Yeah, Fox is back in true form. I will say that. Fox. And the in-race advertisements, I don't remember NBC being that bad. Like, it seemed like every 10 laps, hey, let's go down to the Wendy's pit with DJ Khaled and
dude.
DJ
Okay. I'm glad you mentioned the Wendy's commercials for this one. Had to have been the worst Wendy's commercial. Like, Daniel Suarez and Wendy's, I don't get that.
And the Xfinity race, I mean, it was the same fucking way. Like, just reruns.
It made no sense whatsoever. And it was a full-length ad. I think it was like 30 laps to go, and it was a full-length ad. Yeah. Come on. Like, they got to figure something else out there.
It was bad.
Ford Performance Cam. I mean, like, they had all these different
All
things.
Out.
Yeah. I mean, come on.
They've been doing the Toyota All Out for a while, but it's still like, okay, that's great. And I thought it was weird. When he's always lets me down. I thought it was weird. Did you notice they did Crank It Up in the middle of pit stops?
In the pit stops? the pit stop Crank It Up. It's Fox, man. You know, at least they did the cutaway the one good time during, I believe, the duels or qualifying, whenever it was, and they got in their goodness for the entire year because now it's back to being freaking Fox.
Yeah, it's back to animated cutaway cars, not a real cutaway car. And then on top of that, Clint Boyer, boy, he's tuned himself up real good. That hot rod's really running. Drinking game.
He said a lot of great.
How many times does Clint say hot rod?
Every time he says it,
take a shot.
I'm glad so far Kevin Harvick being added to that group has been great to keep.
I thought Mike was pretty good too.
I think Mike already doesn't like Clint again this year.
Yeah. I think Mike feels better that Harvick's there, but there's like some
definitely better than Danica. He did not like that one.
Yeah. Yeah, that was bad. But like Clint, there was was it when Kyle Busch got penalized and had to go to the back? It was Kyle Busch. He got penalized, had to go to the back, and Clint Boyer actually said like, and here's Kyle Busch. He's up to third. Blah 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 blah. I'm like, the fuck are you talking about? He just got penalized. He's in the back, and he was actually trying to talk about Kyle Larson.
Yeah, probably.
And he realized he fucked up, and he like said everything all over again. But for Kyle Larson,
he said so many dumb things. I just remember I stopped counting, and I just basically tuned him out. I was just listening to the cars.
Can you teach me how to do that?
Well, I had Noah and Kyle Busch's radios playing as loud as it could possibly be, and I was watching in-dash from.
Well, I mean, I had that going on too, and it still didn't work.
It worked. It worked for me. But all right, guys. Well, it's been a little over almost 50 minutes now. We are glad to have been here. It was a great episode. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for hitting the like buttons. We will be back again next week at 7:30 on Tuesday. Make sure you join us. Tune in there. We'll also be doing, I don't like ex-drivers in the booth. To each their own on that. But we'll be back on TikTok. Make sure you go check us out on TikTok. Instagram, we'll do behind the scenes photos. So if you're not on our Instagram, make sure you go over to our Instagram. I believe we're only at 3,000 followers there, but we got 32,000 followers on TikTok. Thank y'all. YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the likes. Really appreciate all y'all trying to grow the channel. My goal for this year, I want to get to 50,000 likes on TikTok. We would love to be able to get to 5,000 on Instagram, and again 3,000 on YouTube. So make it happen. Thank y'all. Love all y'all. Till next time. See you.
Andy LaJoy says bye-bye.
Bye-bye.